The film starts in the Soviet Union in the year 1946, where a young boy named Mishka is being chased by some bullies, and he is saved by one girl named Svetlana, who stops them and hits one of them called Dmitry Romanovich, and the three run away. Svetlana asks Somishka to man up and not always be running, but Somishka tells her that he didn't run because he was afraid of them, but because he was afraid of hurting them. He demonstrates this by lifting up the tractor resting nearby, and even carries Svetlana in his arms and flies away with her. She asks him to give his powers to the state, to help the people, and Somishka thinks about it. Sometime later, there are extraordinary reports coming out of the Soviet Union, and tales of it being allegedly alien in origin, with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. The Russians release a footage showing the Soviet Superman in action, and the reporters think this was just released to put fear in the Western troops. Elsewhere, Lex Luthor informs the US president that he will soon investigate if the tales are real, and all he needs is 100 technicians, large money, and permission to drop a satellite in Metropolis. Luthor is also married to news reporter Lois Lane. Meanwhile, Superman is celebrated in the Soviet Union and honored by General Stalin for helping in the construction of the largest hydroelectric dam, but he gives all the credit to the citizens. Later, the Zenith satellite is reported to have fallen out of its orbit and is now falling towards North America, where the citizens are terrified. However, just like in the movies, it's good old Superman who flies in and turns it to the sea, where it is neutralized. Superman then appears to the American civilians and asks them not to fear him, since all he wants is peace and equality among men. News reporter Lois Lane asks, "What about women?" and asks him for an interview, but Superman is shy to appear on TV and he flies away. Later, Superman finds Lois Lane smoking at the top of the Daily Planet, and first, she says it was prescribed by the doctor. Superman explains his vision of a world where the poor are lifted out of misery, and Lois Lane hands him some classified documents showing how Russian General Stalin and his men were involved in massacres, and Superman is shocked by the evidence, which he hadn't known, and he flies off in anger. Superman then breaks into the Russian army facility, where he discovers the walls are shielded by lead to prevent his nosy self. He then forces his way underground, where he sees civilians mining and working in hard labor. There he meets his childhood friend, Svetlana, who is exhausted by the hard labor, and he bursts out all the civilians, carrying Svetlana in his arms. Svetlana is really thankful for Superman to have finally heard their cries, since now she has finally seen the sun. Svetlana also reminds Superman how he used to save her from bullies when he was young, and she in turn charges him to now use his powers to save the suffering civilians, before she finally closes her eyes. Later, Superman confronts General Stalin for the reported atrocities, and he claims that everything he did was for the good of the people and the welfare of the Soviet state. This angers Superman, and he lasers through Stalin's chest. The guards walk in, but they submit to Superman, who claims that now it's his turn to save the world. Following this, Lex Luthor and Lois Lane receive the reports that General Stalin is dead, which is not terrifying to Luthor, since he is the one that gave the files to Lois, who took it to Superman. Lex Luthor then heads to his lab, where he plans to use Superman's genetic information from the satellite he saved to build a Superman clone. Meanwhile, Superman initiates his project for world peace by first ending the Korean War, and plans to continue with the rest of the world. Later, at a press conference, the US reveals that they have turned to the only man who could conjure something up to match the dominating Soviet Superman, the genius Lex Luthor. Luthor then unveils the new United States living weapon, the Superior Man, who he claims is far faster and stronger than their Russian friend. Later at an evening party, Superman meets Princess Diana of Themyscira, and they agree to form an alliance to make the world better. Right after Diana leaves, Superior Man attacks Superman, and he takes the fight away from the people. Superior Man is also powered from Luthor's lab, where they increase his strength as they watch the fight from a suit camera. When Superman appears to be winning, Luthor asks the scientist to increase his powers, but it results in Superior Man being disfigured and destroyed, and Superman notices that was Luthor's work. Luthor then explains to the angry Miss Lane that the clone was actually a test on Superman's limits, but she is not happy. Superman also tears down the wall built by the Westerns to shield Berlin from the world in the name of world peace. Sometime later, Superman also stops an attack by alien artificial intelligence called Brainiac, who just shrunk the whole city of Stalingrad. He is able to reprogram the living computer Brainiac, who now serves the state. However, Superman still has some haters, including the country terrorist Batman, who thinks that Superman is also caging everyone else in his thoughts, and Batman thinks destroying the whole system is the solution. Batman therefore launches several explosives around the city, and Wonder Woman appears alongside Superman to help rescue the civilians. Back in America, the government show Lex Luthor a strange, crashed ship they found belonging to Green Lantern, Abin Sur, and Luthor takes the ring from him so that they could research on it. Later, Batman captures Wonder Woman and forces her with the lasso of truth to call Superman for aid. When Captain Hairgel arrives, Batman unleashes some red sun kryptonite lamps, which neutralizes Superman's powers, and he attacks Superman and leaves him to die. However, Diana manages to free herself and she destroys the lamp's power source, restoring Superman's powers. Superman plans to have Batman undergo a few hours of brain surgery to neutralize him, and then find him a job in Moscow. But Batman has had enough and he blows himself up with an explosive. Diana is also sick of the world of men and she terminates her friendship with Superman before flying away to Barbie Land. Later in America, after years of civil unrest and disorder, Lex Luthor is elected as the next U.S. president, assisted by Vice President Olson and Press Secretary Lois Lane Luthor. Under his leadership, a thriving democracy has been restored, and America is on the rebound. However, this recovery has also sent waves of civil unrest across the world, as people are beginning to realize that you don't have to give one man all the power in order for the world to be a better place. This report upsets Superman, and Brainiac advises him to invade America, but Superman refuses and plans to win the argument, not beating his opponent into submission. A while later, the Green Lantern ring discovery leads to the formation of a Green Lantern army, led by Colonel Jordan, and they launch an attack on Superman. Wonder Woman then appears to stop the fight, but they refuse to hear her, and she announces that the Themyscira will be hidden to all men for eternity due to their cruelness before leaving. Superman then defeats the Lanterns and finally decides to take the fight straight to Lex Luthor at the White House, accompanied by Brainiac. They find the White House empty, without security, and Lois Lane suddenly appears holding the shrunk, bottled city of Stalingrad. Superman claims he tried to reverse the shrinking but failed, and Brainiac says he could have reversed it, but Superman did not ask for the help. Superman then decides that this is humanity's world, and he has to leave them to make their own mistakes. But Brainiac won't accept this, and he surprisingly destroys the bottled city. Brainiac then reveals that he was never truly reprogrammed, but was using Superman to conquer the planet for himself. Lex Luthor also joins the battle in the power suit to help Superman and sends Miss Lane back into the bunker. Luthor manages to destroy the ship's force field, and Superman breaks through the ship and destroys Brainiac. However, the ship activates a self-destruct sequence of black holes, which is programmed to initiate if Brainiac is defeated. Superman then offers to carry the ship to space, just like in the movies. And on his way, he remembers Svetlana's words, charging him to save the world with his powers, and the ship finally explodes, along with Superman. Later, in a conference after the death of Superman, Lex Luthor envisions the collapse of the Soviet Union, but he promises America will reach out to help. Miss Lois Lane then sees someone resembling Superman amidst the crowd, dressed in normal clothing, but he soon disappears when she blinks. Lex Luthor also resigns as president, and he entrusts the office to his capable vice president, James Olsen. and to the citizens of America. Luther then bids farewell to the crowd as he plans to take his wife, Lois Lane, with him to a faraway island, while Clark is seen walking away from the crowd, and the exciting film comes to an end. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing to our channel. I'll be back with another interesting movie recap. Until then, take care.